The disciples are seeing with human vision. The people who love Jesus are seeing with human vision. They're seeing in terms of limits. They're seeing in terms of human hurt. They're seeing in terms of human pain. They're seeing in terms of loss. And that's what they're seeing. So they're not able to see, in the midst of their feeling downcast and amazed, that what they're looking for is already walking there right with them. Good morning, welcome, 1,000 welcomes to all. And we are meditating today. The topic is how to feel connected, downcast, and amazed. So do either of those words ring a bell? Downcast or amazed? And they're from the scripture. I'm deeply moved. It's from Luke. Both of those phrases are from Luke. And it describes the feelings that the people who love Jesus have after he leaves the body. And then they start hearing stories. Well, maybe he didn't leave the body. Maybe he's still here in some way. Maybe he's still living light, walking among us. And they're feeling downcast and amazed. And so for each of us, this is an invitation to reflect, no matter how each of us would identify our spiritual background, our religious background, there's a living spiritual truth in the scripture. And so whatever name we would use to describe our particular belief system, we're inviting ourselves to open our heart and feel the living spiritual truth, which helps us when we feel downcast and amazed. These teachings help us. They help us to come from the heart, to come from what is true, to come from what is real, right where we are in the midst of daily life. So before I get to that scripture, I'm just going to share a couple of questions that people have shared with me over this last week. And so it's my great joy and honor just to hear humans being human and to hear humans being emotionally honest, pure of heart, and saying things like, I love my spouse, but how do I love my spouse when my spouse is being impossible? I love my child, but how do I love my child when my child is being impossible? And for some, it's like a multi-year period of your child's life in their teenage years where you're like, how do I love my child? They're breaking my heart. How do I love them? How do I continue loving them even in those times? And it might be our parent that we're struggling. How do I keep loving my parent or my friend or my spouse, my sibling, whoever it is, that person I'm aware of on the planet? I'm finding it really impossible to love them. If we have willingness, and we just simply say, I'm here, divine grace, by whatever name we call the divine. Someone I spoke with recently calls the divine pure awareness and pure love. So just notice for yourself, how do you name the divine? And we're just saying, here I am. How do I open and allow pure awareness and pure love, if that's the way I name the divine, to share through me? And by grace, pure awareness and pure love will share through us as we open and allow that to happen. And so I'm going to share, this is why I have the Kleenex, a story that I came across from Howard Thurman. And so Howard Thurman became an incredibly respected, honored, esteemed teacher and sharer of truths. He's sometimes described as a mystic. He's sometimes described as an author. He's sometimes described as a philosopher. He was a mentor to Dr. King. And he's someone who had direct, living contact with the oneness that underlies all of existence. And so he speaks with this incredible gravitas, like this spiritual seriousness. And he's sharing a story of when he was first starting out. So he's a junior minister, first starting out. And he receives a call that someone who's dying is asking for a minister. And Howard Thurman is the one who's called. And Howard Thurman walks into the hospital. The nurse walks him to the patient and says to the patient who's about to leave the body, here's the minister you've asked for, and leaves the room. And Howard Thurman has no words. He feels completely unprepared. He feels completely unable to say a single word. And what he does is sit down at this man's bedside, and he holds the man's hand, and he closes his eyes, and he prays. And he pours out to the divine all of his human thoughts and all of his human feelings. And so he doesn't say this when he's telling the story, but you can tell. He's like, I don't know how to do this. What words can I possibly say? Who am I? What am I doing here? Divine grace, how do I do this? This is impossible. And he's just emotionally honest with the divine. And as he pours out his thoughts and his feelings to the divine, what happens is, deeper than his thoughts and his feelings, he arrives at divine peace. Divine peace is always there, deeper than his thoughts and his feelings. As he arrives at divine peace, Howard Thurman's eyes spontaneously open. The man's eyes spontaneously open at the same time. And the man says to him with great effort, "Thank you. I understand." And he dies. And it is entirely wordless. There is not a single word spoken. And so what that story makes clear is that Howard Thurman did what all of us are invited to do in that situation where we're like, I don't have words. This is humanly impossible. I'm unprepared. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to think. What is before me? I'm at a loss. If we simply are present, we reach out a hand, and silently, we honestly offer our human thoughts and our human feelings to the divine, deeper than our human thoughts and our human feelings. Divine peace is always present. Divine peace is always walking with us. And that's that energy. The man who was leaving the body silently felt that, silently received the divine peace, silently went on that journey through the human thoughts and feelings, deeper than the human thoughts and feelings to divine peace, and said, "Thank you, I understand," and left the body in the current, in the realization that divine peace is real. And so this is what each of us is invited to do. And I want to make it really clear, this is with your spouse, when your spouse is impossible to love. This is with your child or your teenager when they're impossible to love. This is with whoever it is that you're aware of in your neighborhood or on the planet for whom your human self feels that's just impossible. I can't share love in that case. I can't share understanding. I can't share peace. If we go deeper than our human thoughts and feelings, the divine will connect us with divine peace. The divine will connect us with divine love, with divine awareness, with divine understanding. And that is what shares through us. So everyone has clarity. It's not actually the human that is sharing the transmission. Each of us is just invited to be a conduit and to do our part, to be pure of heart, to be spiritually honest, to be present, to offer whatever our thoughts are, whatever our feelings are to the divine, and then to allow the divine peace to be here and to share silently through us. And that blesses, that in this story that I was just sharing, that blesses the man who was about to leave the body. It blesses Howard Thurman. It blesses everyone who hears the story. Welcome. I'm Swami Nityananda. If you are enjoying this content, please like, share, and subscribe. Please also subscribe to our free Substack newsletter available at the link below this video. Thank you for helping joy travel. And the same is true for each of us. Every time we go deeper than those human thoughts and human feelings, we're in the energy of loving beyond limits, seeing beyond limits. And so I'm going to move to the scripture story now. And keep in mind always, what we're being invited to do is see beyond limits. Love beyond limits. And so that's what this story is about. It's Luke 24, a very famous story on the road to Emmaus. So likely you've heard this before. Listen inwardly. It's about seeing beyond limits and loving beyond limits. Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther, but they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening, the day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" And so we'll keep meditating on this, but just a couple of points right here. The disciples are seeing with human vision. The people who love Jesus are seeing with human vision. They're seeing in terms of limits. They're seeing in terms of human hurt. They're seeing in terms of human pain. They're seeing in terms of loss. And that's what they're seeing. So they're not able to see, in the midst of their feeling downcast and amazed, that what they're looking for is already walking there right with them. And so one of the ways to meditate with this is, in order to rise, Jesus had to see beyond limits. He had to see beyond human hurt. He had to see beyond human pain. He had to see beyond duality. And he had to love beyond limits as well. And so they're not able to see because they're still seeing in terms of limits. They're still seeing in terms of duality and human hurt and human pain. And so I'll just share with you another scripture where it's the same dynamic. This is from John 20. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. And so if you can see, what she's looking for is already with her when she's in the garden crying. But she's seeing still in terms of limits. She's seeing still in terms of loss and hurt and pain. And so for each of us, the divine is already with us. The divine is with us if we are in the garden crying. The divine is with us on the road of life. Whatever we are walking through, whatever we are looking for, whatever we are seeking, the divine is already with us. And what we are inviting ourselves to do is to see deeper than limits, to see deeper than duality, to see deeper than human hurt, to see deeper than human pain. And the way that Swami Nityananda puts this, it's very simple. Simply said, it's very simply said. The living of it, if we truly open our hearts and live in this way, the same healing energy that shares through Jesus will share through each of us. It is just the law. That is the way this works. And so what Swami Nityananda says is, we are asked to love God with our whole being. That's it. It's only that. If we just love God with our whole being, so that all of my thoughts are only about the love of God, I will see the divine with me in the garden when I am crying. Doesn't mean you won't sometimes cry. You're human, so you will still experience human emotions. But it means the way that Howard Thurman does, whatever your human thoughts or feelings are, you'll just offer them to the divine, and then deeper than the human thoughts and feelings, you'll realize divine peace is already here, right in the midst of my ignorance, right in the midst of my feeling like, this is impossible, divine grace. How do I keep going? The divine is already here. So Swami Nityananda again says, we are asked to love God with our whole being. Why do we find it so difficult and often painful to fulfill this law? We are attached to our judgments, opinions, hurts, disappointments. So that's it right there. If I am not feeling complete, unconditional divine love flowing through my heart, the question is, am I willing to let go of my opinions? Am I willing to go deeper? Am I willing to say it's more important for me to feel this divine unconditional love always, no matter what? And you'll still have your perspective. You just won't be bound. You just won't be limited by your perspective. And so another way to put this is the unconditional divine love is able to flow through you without interruption. And so that's a question for each of us to ask ourselves. We've been asking ourselves once a week for this How to Feel Connected meditation series. If you look back over your week and let there just be clarity and honesty, no judgment, just clarity, and you think about your own connection with divine love, pure awareness, by whatever name you call the divine, what percentage of the time were you feeling connected to unconditional love, to pure awareness, to the divine? And then what percentage of the time were you feeling pulled out of your center and distracted by judgments, by limitation, by duality, by opinions, by hurt, by blame, by fear, by shame? And just notice. And then it's an offering. And you saw in the story that I shared with you, you just offer your thoughts. You just offer your feelings to the divine, and with a willingness to go deeper into divine peace. And so if you think about this, this is exactly what Jesus demonstrates with his resurrection. If he had held on to duality and limits, he wouldn't have been able to rise. If he had held on to human hurt and pain and blame and shame, he wouldn't have been able to rise. And so this teaches us that this is possible. This is possible not only then, but this is possible now, right in the midst of our daily lives. And the practical work of it is, am I willing to let go of my attachment to my judgment so that I allow the love of the divine to fill my entire being? And you just, moment by moment, thought by thought, word by word, choice by choice, you continue to make this choice. I'm willing to let go of my attachment to my judgments. I'm willing to let go of my attachment to my opinions. I'm willing to let go of my attachment to my hurts. I'm willing to let go of my attachment to my disappointments. And then what happens is you'll just feel unconditional pure love flowing through your heart. And that is what makes it possible. So that unconditional pure love that flows through our hearts, this is the energy of resurrection. This is the energy that loves through us, right in the midst of our daily life, in our families, when it seems impossible to love. But this is also the energy of healing. And it's also the energy that if you have a property to buy or a property to sell, it's actually the energy that is taking care of buying the property or selling the property. And so for each of you, whatever your enterprises are, whatever your work is, to be in tune with this pure source energy, that is what allows all things to unfold, even if it seems humanly impossible. So I'll share a couple of examples of this, very practical examples. One is an example of a woman who was older, and she kept, as she was lying in her bed, reading the passage in the Bible where Jesus says to his students, "Where I go, you cannot follow." And she got stuck on that passage. And she felt cut off from the divine. And she was actually bedridden, just like stuck, not able to walk, continuing to meditate on this passage. Jesus telling his students, where I go, you cannot follow. And then she came into contact with someone who was in contact with this realization that the same energy that flows through the one called Jesus flows through all of existence. And that person said to her, truth is healing. that same energy that rose through Jesus is flowing through you. And in this woman's mind, there was just like this light bulb of awareness that happened, and she could feel, as her ideas of stuckness went away, she could feel life energy flowing through her. She got up and walked. She had been bedridden. And so this is available for each of us. So that healing energy that is the divine, it expresses, the word that people use today is manifests, in different ways perfectly. So the work that each of us can do is to open and to let go of anywhere that we feel stuck, to let go of anywhere that we feel cut off from the divine, and to just say, no matter what things look like on outer levels, no matter what, divine love is here. And so I open and I allow that divine love to flow through my mind. I open and I allow that divine life energy to flow through my body. And then, if it's optimal, great healings can happen in time and space. And they did for that particular woman. But let there be no blame. If anyone is listening to this and they're bedridden and then they say, well, I feel divine love flowing through me and I'm still in my bed, let there be no blame. And know that your body, exactly as it is right now, is equally a beloved extension into time and space of pure life energy, of pure divine energy. And so that's our task for each of us, is just, how may I connect with that pure life energy? And then a couple of other things that people mentioned to me this week. So a couple of stories. There was a woman who knew that she was likely to live in a particular house. And the process took 2 years to unfold in time and space. She just had this inner knowing, I'm likely to live in that particular place. And she had this inner knowing, if I'm meant to live in that particular place, I will live in that particular place. And so she just lived in that knowingness, lived in that awareness, and it happened. And it's basically her dream house. So she's living in her dream house, and it happened over this quiet unfolding in time and space. And so for each person, like whatever your enterprises are, it is actually the divine who is doing it through you. And so if you're thinking about, like, I want to buy a property or I want to sell a property, it's actually the divine that's in charge of the whole process. And so you can absolutely trust, no matter what the conditions are externally in the world, the divine has appointed the perfect buyer. The divine has appointed the perfect seller. The divine has appointed the perfect financing. And often it is something that the human mind can't quite anticipate, because the human mind is often seeing in terms of limits. And so for each of us, it is just that continual, I'm willing to open, I'm willing to allow myself to be a conduit for pure source energy. And when something feels impossible to me, I'm willing to acknowledge that, but then to give that feeling to the divine and to allow the divine to do through me what seems impossible to me. And that's back to very core teachings from Jesus. He says all things are possible to one who believes. And Swami Nityananda loved to say all things are possible to one who loves. And so for each of us, we have just a few moments right here. I would love for us to tune in and just allow ourselves to feel in our own hearts, am I willing to open and love the divine with my whole being? And so this is just an ongoing practice. We'll do this right now. But am I willing to breathe through any attachment that I have to judgments, and allow divine love to open and to transform any attachment that I have to judgments, so that pure, unconditional love flows through me unimpeded by any attachment to judgments? Am I willing to open my heart and allow the divine to love through me with my whole being, letting go of any attachment to opinions? I will certainly keep my perspective, but I'm letting go of attachment, and I'm asking the divine to show me a higher perspective, a higher wisdom, a higher understanding than I may have been able to reach humanly. And then we're asking, am I willing to open my heart and love the divine with my whole being, letting go of my attachment to hurts, Just continuing to breathe and allowing the hurts to transform and be made whole in the light of unconditional divine love. Am I willing to love the divine with my whole being, letting go of my attachment to disappointments? So again, it's not that you're agreeing with whatever human behavior you don't agree with, that's fine, but you're just letting go of feeling bound. Attachment means you're still in some way bound. You're still in some way reacting instead of responding. And so you're just opening to see and to feel greater divine wisdom and understanding and pure love, so that divine love and responsiveness are able to share through you. And so I'm going to blink my eyes open quickly and just share with you, the Bhagavad Gita has a description of someone who has fully realized what this is, to love beyond limits, to see beyond limits, to love beyond duality, to see beyond duality. And I want to be clear, it seems impossible from a human perspective, and I would say it probably is impossible from a human perspective, but nothing is impossible to the divine. So each of us is opening and allowing the divine to do this through us. So these are the signs of one who has risen above human energy patterns. It is exactly what Jesus demonstrates when he rises. He is the same in pleasure and pain, self-composed, regarding a clod of earth, a stone, and gold alike. The same amidst the pleasant and unpleasant. The same in praise and blame. Firm in wisdom. The same in honor and insult. Alike to friend and foe, and who renounces all selfish undertakings. And so this is for each of us to live into the fullness of that. Another way to put this is being equal to all, seeing the divine light that is present in the core of all beings equally, independent of human behavior, independent of human ignorance, independent of human hatred. That's what Jesus does when he says, "Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do." And so for each of us, that might be part of our task for now or for ongoingly, to be willing to look deeper than human ignorance, than human pain, than human hurt, than human blame, and to say deeper than that is the divine. And the divine is always quietly working. And so be part of that energy of forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. And also, chances are that we ourselves have been loved and forgiven when we ourselves needed love and forgiveness. And so having been loved and forgiven, we have it to pass on. And that's part of our divine purpose, to be here right now. Thank God, and God bless us all.